Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Katha Upanishad workshop. This is an effort after 14 months of continuous contemplation of the Katha Upanishad of Krishna Yajurveda. So I would like to welcome you all for this exciting program. We have a list of really well-prepared speakers for today. Now, just a bit of ground rules here. So we're not going to have any particular Q&A sessions today. So we're just going to go from one speaker to another speaker. And at the end, we have a very interesting quiz as well. So over to Ramesh ji to start the program with a bhajan, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Madhvantargata Veda Vyasa Madhvantargata Veda Vyasa Kayo Shuddha Murtiye Sarvesha Madhvantargata Veda Vyasa Kayo Shuddha Murtiye Sarvesha Madhvantargata Veda Vyasa Madhvantargata Veda Vyasa Shraddhayindali ninna bhajisuva janarige Shraddhayindali ninna bhajisuva janarige Buddhyadigal kottu uddaripa devara deva madhvantargata veda vyasa Ayu shuddha murtiye sarvecha madhvantargata veda vyasa Dwapara dhaliyobba munipa Anna kopadindali kotta shapa Dwapara dhaliyobba munipa Anna kopadindali kotta shapa Chapi saludhyana Lopavagi Shapi saludhyana lopavagi Apara tattva swarupa Apara tattva swarupa Sripati Kayandu Murayire Papa Virahita Ladaya Munaya Deepadali Ambigara Pendina Rupa Golidavanalli Janisida Madhvantargata Veda Vyasa Madhvantargata Veda Vyasa Madhvantargata Veda Vyasa ವೇದವಾಕ್ಯಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳಲು ತತ್ವವಾದಿ ಜನರು ಬಾಯ ಬಿಡಲು ವೇದವಾಕ್ಯಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳಲು ತತ್ವವಾದಿ ಜನರು ಬಾಯ ಬಿಡಲು ಮೇದಿನಿ ಸುರರು ಮೊರೆಯಿಡಲು ಮೇದಿನಿ ಸುರರು ಮೊರೆಯಿಡಲು ಮಿಕ್ಕ ವೇದ ವಿಭಾಗ ರಚಿಸಲು ಮಿಕ್ಕ ವೇದ ವಿಭಾಗ ರಚಿಸಲು ಮೋದದಿಂದ ತತ್ವಬೋಧಕ ವೇದ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಪುರಾಣ ವಿರಚಿಸಿ ಮೋದದಿಂದ ತತ್ವಬೋಧಕ ವೇದ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಪುರಾಣ ವಿರಚಿಸಿ ವಾದಿಗಳ ನಿರ್ವಾದ ಮಾಡಿದ ಸಾಧು ವಂದಿತ ಬಾದರಾಯಣ ಮಧ್ವಾಂತರ್ಗತ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸ ಕಾಯು ಶುದ್ಧ ಮೂರ್ತಿಯೇ ಸರ್ವೇಶ ಮಧ್ವಾಂತರ್ಗತ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸ ಮಧ್ವಾಂತರ್ಗತ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸ ಸುಮತಿಗಳಿಗೆ ನೀ ಬೋಧಿಸಿದಿ ಸುಮತಿಗಳಿಗೆ ನೀ ಬೋಧಿಸಿದಿ ಮಿಕ್ಕ ಕುಮತಿಗಳನ್ನು ನೀ ಛೇದಿಸಿದಿ ಸುಮತಿಗಳಿಗೆ ನೀ ಬೋಧಿಸಿದಿ ಮಿಕ್ಕ ಕುಮತಿಗಳನ್ನು ನೀ ಛೇದಿಸಿದಿ ಕ್ರಮದಿಂದ ರಾಜ್ಯವಾಳಿಸಿದಿ ಕ್ರಮದಿಂದ ರಾಜ್ಯವಾಳಿಸಿದಿ ಜಗತ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ತಾನೆಂದು ತೋರಿಸಿದಿ ಜಗತ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ತಾನೆಂದು ತೋರಿಸಿದಿ ಅಮರ ವಂದಿತ ಕಮಲ ನಾಭನೆ ರಮಯ ಅರಸನೆ ಚರಿತನೆ ಅಮರ ವಂದಿತ ಕಮಲ ನಾಭನೆ ರಮಯ ಅರಸನೆ ರಮ್ಯ ಚರಿತನೆ ಮಮತೆಯಲಿ ಕೊಡು ಕಾಮಿತಾರ್ಥವ ಕರುಣಿ ಸೈಹಯ ಬದನ ಮೂರ್ತಿ ಮಧ್ವಾಂತರ್ಗತ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸ ಮಧ್ವಾಂತರ್ಗತ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸ ಕಾಯೋ ಶುದ್ಧ ಮೂರ್ತಿಯೇ ಸರ್ವೇಶ ಮಧ್ವಾಂತರ್ಗತ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸ 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 ಮಧ್ವಾಂತರ್ಗತ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸ ಮಧ್ವಾಂತರ್ಗತ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸ ವೇದ
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरे परमात्मने प्रणतक्लेशनाशाय गोविंदाय नमो नमः गुरुभ्यो नमः परमगुरुभ्यो नमः श्रीमदानंदतीर्थ भगवत्पादाचार्य गुरुभ्यो नमः. A very good afternoon, good evening to all the members present here. Let's begin today's workshop by understanding where Katha Upanishad stands in the grand scheme of Vedic scriptures. We know that Vedas are infinite and aporishya. Vedas were lost at the end of Dwapara Yuga. Krishna Dvaipayana or Veda Vyasa, the incarnation of Lord Narayana, compiled Vedas and gave it to his disciples, Paila, Vaishampayana, Jaimini, and Sumantu. Veda Vyasa gave the responsibility of preserving Vedas and teaching portions of Vedas to his disciples. So 4 Shake or 4 branches of Vedas, that is Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharvana Veda came about. Now let's focus on Yajur Veda. We know Vaishampayana, the disciple of Veda Vyasa, was given the responsibility of preserving Yajur Veda. Yajnavalkya was a disciple of Vaishampayana. He developed misunderstanding with Vaishampayana. Yajnavalkya left his Gurukula and saw a fresh portion of Yajur Veda, which became Shukla Yajur Veda. And that portion of Yajur Veda preserved by Vaishampayana became Krishna Yajur Veda. Samaveda was preserved by Jaimini, Atharvana Veda was preserved by Sumantu, and Paila preserved Rig Veda. Then for thousands of years, these Vedas were passed on from one Rishi family to the other till today. Rishi families became Upashake or sub-branches. Rig Veda has 24 Upashakes, Krishna Yajurveda has 86 Upashakes, Shukla Yajurveda has 15, Samaveda has 1,000, and Atharvana Veda has 12 Upashakes. So together there are 1,137 Upashakes or sub-branches came out to preserve Vedas by rishis reciting and the students listening and memorizing them. Each Upashakes has many verses, and together in all the 4 Vedas, there are 20,416 verses, which further got divided into Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad, as you can see the picture in the slide clearly given by Madhusudanji. This is a grand scheme of Vedas. Let us understand what are Vedas. Pipalada says, scriptures that give knowledge about Supreme Brahman is Veda. According to Taittiriya Brahmana, without the knowledge of Vedas, there is no chance of knowing Supreme Brahman. We know that, now we already know that there are 1,137 Upashakes. When we add all the digits, the sum total is 3. So Vedas are also called as Trayi, consisting of Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and Sama Veda. Rig Veda is made of Padya or poetry. Yajur Veda is made of Gadya or prose, and Sama Veda is made of Ghana or music. All the communications are only in these 3 forms. There are many Upanishads, but 10 Upanishads called Dasha Upanishads have become important scriptures because it provides all the information that we need to know about ourselves, our relation with Supreme Brahman and universe. It's depicted, the Dasha Upanishad is depicted by the picture of Gita Upanishad, which you see in the slide on the right-hand side. So we can see Krishna in the chariot. Behind him is Arjuna with 4 horses. Each horse, first horse is called Saibya, which represents Rig Veda, and Aitreya Upanishad belongs to Rig Veda. The second horse is called Sugriva, which represents Yajur Veda. There are 2 branches of Yajur Veda. One is Krishna Yajur Veda, the other one is Shukla Yajur Veda. So Isha Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad belongs to Shukla Yajur Veda. Katha Upanishad and Taittiriya Upanishad belongs to Krishna Yajur Veda. The third horse is called Megha Pushpa, which represents Sama Veda. The 2 Chandogya Upanishad and Keno Upanishad belongs to Sama Veda. Now the 4th horse is Balahaka, which represents Atharvana Veda. So Mundaka Upanishad, Mandokya Upanishad, and Prashna Upanishad belongs to Atharvana Veda. After knowing about Vedas, let's understand the meaning of Upanishad. Upanishads are those scriptures which give knowledge of Supreme Brahman. According to Sri Shankaracharya, Upanishad eliminates ignorance and it also eliminates samsara. Upanishads also means sitting close to a guru and learning scriptures to enhance our knowledge about Supreme Brahman. So one such Upanishad is Katha Upanishad or Katha Upanishad. Katha Upanishad has 2 adhyayas. First one is Prathama Adhyaya. It has 3 vallis or sections and has 70 mantras in it. The second one is Dvitiya Adhyaya. It also has 3 vallis with 48 mantras. So totally there are 118 mantras in Katha Upanishad. Upanishad is read by offering prayers to rishis. The rishis of this Upanishad are Haigriva Namaka Paramatma, Chaturmukha Brahma, Yama, Katarishi, Nachiketa, and Udalaka. The Devata is Vamanamurti Paramatma, and Chandas is Anushtup Chandas, which has 32 syllables, and the Phala is to get knowledge of Paramatma by the Anugraha of Vamanamurti, ultimately attain moksha. So let us know more about Yama and Katarishi. Yama is the son of Surya. His wife is Shamala. Yama occupies 12th rank. He is the Tattvabhimani Devate of southern direction in Brahmanda and takes care of excretion in Pindanda. Katarishi is an exalted rishi of ancient Vedic times. He made a huge effort to gain knowledge about Supreme Brahman. So he is called Katha Rishi. His family preserved Krishna Yajurveda. One of the shakes of Krishna Yajurveda is Katha Shake. This is the Katha Shake. So this is the brief introduction about Katha Upanishad. I will be discussing from mantras 1 to mantra 10, which gives the background to Nachiketa's journey to Yamaloka, boons offered by Yama, and the first boon. The first mantra gives the context of this Upanishad. Vajashrava was a very famous person known for his charity and knowledge. He had a desire to go to Swarga. So he performed a sacrifice or yajna called Vishwajit sacrifice and gave all his wealth in charity. The wealth that Vajashrava Rishi had was thousands of cows. Cows were the major form of economical transaction during Vedic times. Vajashrava or Udalaka or Aruni refers to the same Rishi belonging to Gautama Gotra. Udalaka's wife was Vishwavara Devi. They both had two sons, namely Shvetaketu and Nachiketa. Shvetaketu was an extrovert, intelligent, went to Gurukula, but did not become a great rishi or a philosopher. Whereas Nachiketa was an introvert, not very bright, was ridiculed by his parents, did not go to Gurukula, did only menial work in the ashram, but became a great rishi. This Nachiketa was less than 10 years, and he was sitting and watching his father Udalaka performing Vishwajit Yajna and giving cows as dana or charity. Superficially, it looked fine, but it occurred to him that his father was doing something strange and doing opposite things that will make way to Naraka instead of Swarga. So his father gave healthy cows to his relatives, but old and useless cows to rishis, brahmanas, and others. These cows have drunk water earlier and have no strength to drink water now. They have grazed grass earlier, but do not have strength to graze now. They were giving milk earlier, but have no capacity to yield milk now. And they have also lost all their indriyas. Such donas reach narakas where there is no ananda. Therefore, Nachiketa wished to save his father from reaching Naraka. Nachiketa approached his father and asked him to give him as dana or charity so that he can help that person and his father get some punya out of it. But Udalaka did not reply, feeling that the boy was too young. So Nachiketa repeated the same question thrice. He didn't give up. He asked the same question thrice. Hearing this, Udalaka got angry and shouted at him that he will donate him to Yamadharma Raja. Immediately, Nachiketa collapsed and had an inner vision. He left his gross body and with a subtle body, he makes his journey towards Yamaloka. When he was making his journey towards Yamaloka, according to Taitreya Brahmana, he meets Vagdevata, that is Goddess Saraswati, has conversation with her. She tells, Yama is not going to give darshan for 3 days. You have to wait for 3 days. When Yama appears, he will offer you 3 boons and you can ask him 3 boons. According to Mahabharata and Varaha Purana, Nachiketa reaches Yamaloka, wishes to go around Yamaloka, and one of the Tutas takes him around Yamaloka. According to Katha Upanishad, Nachiketa reaches Yamaloka and waits for 3 days there. 1 day of Devaloka is 1 year on the earth. So 3 days in Yamaloka is 3 years on earth. So he should have had 3 shraddhas. But again, this is a clue which tells us that Nachiketa has had an inner vision and he has not actually gone with his gross body to Yamaloka. When Nachiketa is making his trip to Yamaloka, he sees a long queue, as you see in the slide. He sees a long queue of souls going to Yamaloka. Some souls were before him and some souls were behind him, and he is in the middle. Looking at this, Nachiketa thinks, what use will I be to Yama? Why did my father ask me to go to Yamaloka? Instead, he could have given me to some Brahmin whom I could have served and be of some use to him. As he continued his trip to Yamaloka, Yamadutas take him to Yamaloka and ask him to look around and experience what he is seeing, what is happening to all the souls or jivas in Naraka. Every soul that comes here has to go through this process, suffer pain for all the sins done in their life, like Kumbhipaka, as you can see the picture there, Kumbhipaka, etc. Once they complete their punishment, they go to Mrityuloka and take their birth again, based on their karmic impression. Souls which go to Swarga after the enjoyment also come back to Mrityuloka and take their birth again. Now, how Jiva comes down? Now, from Swarga and Naraka, the Jiva has to come down. That is explained in the journey of souls, which is also called Panchagni Vidya, where actually the Jiva comes down, gets into the cloud. When the rain falls, it reaches the ground, and then it enters into the plant, reaches the vegetables in the plant, and then the vegetables are plucked, cooked, and eaten. Then it enters into the male body. From male body, it enters into the female body. Then fertilization happens in the female body, and then the jiva gets the gross body, and it comes to earth once again, and this cycle goes on and on. This vidya is called Panchagni Vidya. Finally, Nachiketa reaches the palace of Yama. Yama doesn't give him darshan for 3 days. Yama's wife, Shamla, sees this young boy waiting outside, receives him and offers food. But Nachiketa refuses to enter the house and eat food. After 3 days and 3 nights, Yama gives darshan to Nachiketa. So now the question comes, why did Yama make Nachiketa wait for 3 days? Why not 5 days or 10 days or 1 day? Yama was very keen to pass on the philosophy by giving him 3 boons. So he created an environment by making him wait for 3 days so that he can give 3 boons, which will be through him, the people like us can get benefited to attain salvation. Before Yama meets Nachiketa, there is a conversation between Yama and Shamla about charity, where they speak about the importance of charity. Shamla tells Yama, Vaishwanara, that is the Nachiketa is called as Vaishwanara. Vaishwanara has come to our place. He is hungry and his stomach is burning and he is our Atiti. He is a Brahmana who knows Brahman. So please pacify him with water, cool him down and look after him by washing his hands and legs. She also tells about if Atiti is not looked after properly, Shamla says the desire to get the desired results, friendship with others and their association, dear and truthful words, action done for our benefits, sons, cows, and all the other things will be destroyed. So to avoid all these consequences, please go pacify our Atiti Nachiketa. So hearing all these things, our Yama goes to Nachiketa with humility and says, you have been waiting in my house for 3 days. You must be hungry. You are a Brahmana, a knowledgeable Atiti. Then Yama holds his hand and does namaskara and says that because you have come, may good things happen to me. And says sorry for making him wait for 3 days and tells him to ask for 3 boons or varas. So Nachiketa asked for the first vara. It goes like this. Let my father, belonging to Gautama Gotra, always have good thoughts. Make that happen. Let him not have anger. Ensure me that he will not do bad deeds and ensure that I go back to my father. Once I go back to the gross body that I left, my father should recognize me, must be happy to see me and must talk to me nicely. So Yama accepts the prayer of Nachiketa and grants the first boon and says, your father Udalaka will recognize you like before. I will send you back to your father and I will ensure you that he will be happy to receive you. He will sleep well at the night from now on, and will have no anger after seeing you, who has returned from the clutches of death. So that's how the first vara has been granted to Nachiketa. Now over to Kamalaji for the second vara. Krishnarpanamastu.
Narayanaaya paripurna gunarnavaya vishvodaya sthitilayo niyati pradaya jnana prada vibhuda surasaukya dukkha satkaranaya vitataya namo namaste. Acharya Srimad Acharya Shantume Janma Janmani. Namaskara to one and all. Second boon is in the first Valli, mantra 11 to 18. Mantra 11. Nachiketas praises Swarga as moksha itself. For the reason he wanted to know about the Swarupa of Agni, which is sadhana for Swarga. O Yamadharmaraja, in the loka called Swarga, there is no iota of fear and there is no Yamadharmaraja. Therefore, there is no fear of death, which is the greatest fear. There is no question of old age. Both hunger and thirst are surpassed there. The misery element is superseded there. Like that, in Swargaloka, one enjoys happiness. Nachiketas wanted to know about the Agni Swarupa, which leads to Swarga. The Swarga given here is moksha and not Swarga as it is. Because in Swarga, there is a fear by seeing the stories of the worst devils Hiranyakashipu and his brother Hiranyaksha, who drove all the Devatas from the Swarga. There was a great fear about them, and by the curse of the divine sage Durvasaru, Swarga lost all the Karunya of Mahalakshmi, all wealth lost, and complete poverty overtook there. Nachiketas, to get the second boon, has praised Swarga to a larger extent. Mantra 12. Oh, Yamadharmaraja, you gave and bestowed me with boons. You know better about Agni, who is Sarvotama Vishnu only. Argyatvat Agnihi. The Mahimas of Swarga have been narrated in the earlier mantra. To reach that place, the nature of Agni, like Jyotitmaya Agni, to be known. Nachiketas asked Yama to teach about that Vishnu, who is called as Agni, as I am interested to know in good faith, and I am bona fide, so said Nachiketas to the Yama. Thus, exercising second boon from Yama, Nachiketas asked so because those who have reached and aimed at Swargaloka by the knowledge of Vishnu, who is present in Agni, finally reach moksha. Nachiketas described himself as Shardhanaya Maham. On this only, the verse 439 in Gita is based. Shardhavan labate jnanam tat paraha samyatendriyaha jnanam latva param shantim achirena adigacchati. To attain the knowledge of God, Sri Krishna tabulates the essential prerequisites, of which the first and foremost being Shardhavan. The man should have Astika Buddhi. Here Nachiketa states that he has that requisite with him and so eligible to hear and get the knowledge about Paramatma from Yama. Mantra 13. Yama replies when he was prayed for like this by the Brahmin boy Nachiketas. Oh Nachiketas, for attaining Swarga, Agni is the sadhana. And in that Agni, Paramatma Vishnu is present with the name Agni, and about whom Yama going to narrate. The Agni narrated known as Vishnu and be understood as under 1. He is called Ananta. 2. He is the one who will take to his loka which is indestructible. 3. Further, he is the support for all the worlds. 4. He is the one who is seated in the hearts of all creatures. Mantra 14. Yamadharmaraja told Nachiketas about Sri Vishnu, and about other rituals, Nachiketas repeated the same and explained in this mantra. Yama did Upadesha to Nachiketas about that Vishnu who is the Antaryamin for Agni and who is responsible for all the worlds. Then explained the requirements for Agni Kunda, namely the bricks and other devatas for yaga, and their swarupas were explained to him. And it is in the slide clearly shown by Madhuji. Then what should be the number and how to perform the rituals and the measurements? The Brahmin boy Nachiketas repeated all that Upadesha told by Yama. He repeated the Bhagavat Swarupa Ishtika Yaga and the number of stones needed, etc. in detail. Srimad Acharya states as Brahmanaha Lakshanaha. And this Lakshana is not applicable to anyone else other than Sri Hari. The Shabda Agni denotes only Paramatma, but not Agni Devatas. Because the adjective Lokadi, cause of the whole world, is stated which is applicable only to Vishnu. This is stated in the second sutra. The deity of the bricks used in the sacrifice is Vishnu himself. The number is 360. This denotes that Vishnu will bring Mangala throughout the year and every year if such yaga is made. Mantra 15. Yama, who was very much pleased with the Rishiputra Nachiketas, grants more than 3 boons and does anugraha to him. Generous-hearted Yamadharmaraja, who was pleased with Nachiketas, said that he would grant further boons other than 3 already granted, and let this Agni which was preached shall henceforth be called in the world by your name itself as Nachiketas Agni. Please take this garland made out of gold to be worn on your neck. This incident of Yama granting golden garland to the Nachiketas by being pleased with this learning stated in Padma Purana also. Mantra 16. In the 13th mantra, Yama described about Vishnu, who is present in Agni by the name Ananta Lokaptin, was also told to that Agni, which means he can grant moksha to the Satvik souls. The mantra elucidates a Satvik soul who does yaga thrice with Nachiketa's Agni and who acquaints himself with 3 Vedas, Rig, Yajur and Sama Vedas, and understands about Paramatma, who performs the 3 karmas, namely Yajna, Dana and Tapas, then such persons would be able to cross over birth and death. Further, Brahman will be known by Vedas. He is Sarvajna, all-knowing. He has many attributes like creation of the world, etc. He is the fittest person to be praised and he is to be known by hearing Shravana, etc. About him, Vichara and discussion to be made as stated in the first sutra, and then determined in the mind and later to obtain Aparoksha Jnana by his prasada, and then the soul attains moksha, which is great Shukaswarupa. Trikarma Krita explained in Gita, Sloka 5, chapter 18. Yajnadana tapaha karmana tajyam karyameva tat yajnodanam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. Yajna, dana and tapas and daily and optional karmas should never be left off. They have to be done, performed compulsorily. For the jnanis, these 3 clean them and they will not create bondage with samsara. Nachiketas was a rishi like this. Mantra 17. A devotee who does yaga thrice with Nachiketa's Agni and who knows the 3 attains moksha. What are the 3? Number 1, Devatas, who is in the bricks, Vishnu. Number 2, the number of bricks, namely 360 and their size. Like this, an eligible adhikari who does yaga with Nachiketa's Agni thrice by meditating on Vishnu, present in the Agni as Antaryamin, then Yama will not throw his ropes of samsara, namely cycle of birth and deaths. Then that person will surpass all miseries and would reach Ananda, Jnana and brightness loka, that is Swarga loka, namely in Vishnu loka, and would be happy always. Why 360 bricks? As shown in the slide. Bricks are our bones of our body, that is 360. And there are 360 joints in our body and 360 marrow in our body. When you add these 3 numbers, it comes 1080. And Paramatma has 1080 names explained in Vishnu Sahasranama. So by chanting Vishnu Sahasranama, our body gets purified and Mangala throughout the year. Another explanation. There are 72,000 nadis in our body. Right side 36,000 and left side 36,000. Each nadi is pervaded by a form of Vishnu on right side with male attributes and left side female attributes. Therefore, our body is also a sacrifice, correlating with Kalanamaka. Kalanamaka Paramatma pervades time. Sun is in the center and earth goes round the sun and takes 360 days to make one round, which is 1 year. 1 day is equal to 24 hours. Vedic sacrifice for 360 days and a person lives for 100 years. Then it is 36,000 days. So 36,000 day morning plus 36,000 night is equal to 72,000. So Yama constantly contemplates Kalanamaka Paramatma. So Yamadharmaraja clarifies the total surrender your body, that is Kunda, and whatever you do is sacrifice. And that Vishnu will bring Mangala every year by performing this yaga. Mantra 18. Here, Yamadharmaraja reconfirming the second boon granted by him to Nachiketas. Oh, Nachiketas, what Agni you prayed for me, the purest form of all the Panchabhutas by the second boon, that Agni which acts as a sadhana to Swarga, be therefore called by your name as Nachiketas Agni. It belongs to you. Hereafter, people would call this Swarga Agni as Nachiketas Agni. Yama asked Nachiketas to go ahead with the third boon now. Over to Pratibhaji. Krishna Arpanamastu.
Namaskar everyone. Vyasaya Bhavanashaya Shrishaya Gunarashaya Hridyaya Shuddha Vidyaya Madhvaya Chanmo Namaha. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. After knowing about the Nachiketa's Agni by his second boon, Nachiketa wants to know further. Do jivas retain their identity in moksha? Are jivas different, equal, or become Brahman in moksha? Are jivas independent or dependent on Brahman in moksha? Is there a niyamakatva of Brahman in moksha? What is his greatness? That is, whether God regulates jiva after death and liberation. The doubt here is not whether the soul continues to exist after death, but whether God continues to regulate even after death and in moksha too. If this question were as simple as to whether the jiva survives after death or not, then there was no need to give such a detailed explanation. But the very existence of Yamaloka, Nachiketa's going after death, etc., presupposes the survival of the soul after death. Yama was skeptical to give this esoteric knowledge to Nachiketa, and so he tries to dissuade him and to test his firmness and eligibility to receive this supreme knowledge. Yama gives the first test by saying that even gods had doubts in the past in this respect, and this subtle dharma cannot be easily understood. And he asks Nachiketa to choose a different boon instead. He asks him to choose sons and grandsons who would live for 100 years, plenty of cattle, elephant, gold, and horses, vast expansion of land and life of many years, with charming maidens from Devaloka with their chariots and musical instruments. Nachiketa refuses to be lured, and he says to Yama that man is never content with wealth that is brief, and these would wear out the vigor of all the senses of man. And Nachiketa states that when one meets a deity and guru like Yama, who is capable of giving much higher knowledge, that is the knowledge of the Supreme Paramatma, such petty things such as wealth and life are more a matter of pain than pleasure. He does not want any other boon, but wants to know about the greatness of the Supreme. He wants permanent bliss, permanent communion with the Supreme Lord. Yama is impressed by Nachiketa's thirst to know about the Supreme, and now he demarcates the purpose of worldly pleasure and higher knowledge here. Both the good, Shreyas, and the pleasant, Preyas, are offered to a man, and a wise man pondering chooses the good, rejecting the Preyas, that is pleasant, consisting of acquisition and preservation of worldly objects and thoughts. Shreyas is the path of scriptural knowledge, that is Vidya, that appears to be difficult, but it is the right path and is blissful at the end. Example, following Dharma, studying scriptures, contemplating on them, bringing it to practice, attending satsang regularly, fasting for Ekadashi, Shivratri, looking after our aged parents, anonymous donations are all path towards Shreyas. Prayers appears to be pleasant and pleasurable, but it gives temporary happiness, but has suffering in the end. Avidya, ignorance, Ajnana, Tamas, Maya, which are all the synonyms, has its seed in the Linga Sharira of the Jiva, which causes us to do karmas leading to prayers. This cosmic ignorance is the one which covers the intrinsic swabhava of the Jiva and its relation with the Paramatma, and it assumes the material covering, that is the body, to be the Jiva. The ignorance is the dravya or material which is in direct control of the Supreme Lord, and he does this by his Adbhuta Achintya Shakti. Dravyam karmam cha kalascha svabhavo jiva evacha yadanugrahata santi na santi edupekshayah. This is a verse in Bhagavatam which talks about that. Kama, Krodha and Matsara are the final result of ignorance which is injurious to the souls. We need to make a conscious effort to make towards the path of Shreyas at all times. Yama was happy that Nachiketa chose Shreyas and rejected the material objects of pleasure, a chain of wealth in which many men sink, and Yama says, the unwise, absorbed in the worldly things, considering themselves to be intelligent and learned, following the crooked ways, like the blind leading the blind. Such people come to me again and again, says Yama. But Nachiketa, you did not follow this path, because you are an elevated soul. And now again he tests Nachiketa with his second trick. He praises him so much so as to boost his ego, because being egoistic acts again as a big barrier to realize the supreme and reach the Paramagati, the final goal. Yama says that he was very fortunate to get a very rare disciple and an elevated soul like Nachiketa. And he says, God cannot be heard by many. Many will not know him fully, even on hearing. One who can teach him truly is rare to be found. One who can get a teacher is rare. One who knows, duly instructed, is also rare to be found. And Nachiketa, you are such one, a rare disciple to be found. By saying so, he said that only wise men will not limit the infinite with their finite mind, and they understand that everyone is different and the Supreme Lord is beyond all. And whoever thinks that the Jiva and the Lord are one, or try to identify with the Paramatma, they fall down steeply in their spiritual journey and will never reach the final Gati, says Yama. The Lord is inside the Jiva, and the knowledge of God cannot be obtained by Pratyaksha or Anumana, but can be found in Agama, that is the scriptures. And the first step in the spiritual journey is to realize that I am different and the Paramatma is different, and then move in that direction with this conviction rooted firmly, which Nachiketa displays and is humble throughout without being egoistic. Aryama is highly pleased. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shraddhavan labate jnanam tatparaha samyatendriyaha jnanam labva param shantim achirenati gacchati. The chariot analogy is given in the third and fourth mantra of the third valli of first chapter of Katha Upanishad. In the second mantra of third valli, Guru Yama tells Nachiketa that Nachiketagni is the bridge for those who want to cross over the mortal existence of samsara and to realize Akshara Brahma Param, who is beyond fear. Guru Yama has used chariot metaphor to explain the Shreyas and Preyas aspects to make it easy to understand for us samsaris. Atmanam ratinam viddi, shariram ratamevatu, buddhim tu saratim viddi, mana pragraham evacha. Atmanam ratinam viddi means this body is compared to a chariot. The rider of the chariot is the self, the Jivatman. Shariram ratamevatu, the body is the chariot. The rider, the Lord seated in the chariot, is the Jivatman, ourself. Buddhim tu saratim viddi. The charioteer here is the intellect, the reason, the buddhi in us. Manaha pragraham evacha. The horses pull this chariot, and the reins that control the movement of the horses are the functions of the mind. Indriyani hayanyahur vishayans teshu gocharan atmendriya manoyuktam bhokte ahu manishanaha. Indriyani hayanyahu. The sense organs are the horses of this body chariot. The jiva is the rider. The buddhi or the intelligence, the reason, is the charioteer. The mind is the reins controlling the horses. Which are the sense organs? The objects of the senses are the roads along which the chariot is driven. Atmendriya manoyuktam bhokte te ahur manishineha. The wise call the jiva united with body, senses and mind, thinks he is an independent enjoyer and goes through samsara. Bhagavatam says jnana, vairagya and bhakti alone is the route to Shreyas. Jiva Swarupa with Indriyas, mind and intellect is our sadhana sharira. The passenger, the Jivatma, will be taken to destination he wants, samsara prayas or moksha shreyas. Healthy body or chariot is needed for the journey. Senses collect information from the objects. Indriyas are 10, Jnanendriyas are 5. They are ears, skin, eyes, tongue, nose. And 5 karmendriyas are vak, pani, padam, upastha, payu. And tanmatras, shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. And vishayas are the objects. Objects are many. In spite of the fact that objects are not directly connected with the sense organs move in the direction of the objects. Objects here become a kind to help us to rather than a hindrance. Because the path along which the chariot moves cannot be regarded as the hindrance. Objects become obstacles only when they are considered as things in which senses have to indulge. They become aspects of support and guiding factors when they are regarded as a manifestation of hierarchy of guiding forces through whose assistance alone it is possible for us to ascend to the path of Shreyas. So with untrained senses or horses, the chariot will crash and Jivatma will come back to samsara. The mind documents the experiences. Mind is an inner instrument where all information from senses is done. If the buddhi, being related to a mind that is always distracted, loses its discriminating, then the senses become uncontrolled like the vicious horses of the charioteer. But if the buddhi, being related to a mind that is always restrained, possesses discrimination, then the senses come under control like the good horses of a charioteer. The buddhi, intellect, discriminates and decides what is to be done. If the buddhi, being related to a distracted mind, loses its discrimination and therefore always remains impure, then the embodied soul never attains the goal, but enters it into the round of births. But the buddhi, being related to a mind that is restrained, possesses discrimination and therefore always remains pure, then the embodied soul attains that goal from which he is not born again. A human being who has discrimination for his charioteer and holds the reins of the mind firmly reaches the end of the road, and that is the supreme abode of Vishnu. My realization from this analogy is, as said in Bhagavad Gita 6.34, Arjuna says, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramathi balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva shaduskaram. Mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Controlling it is very difficult. Only with a charioteer like Krishna can take us across to purify the mind and stable the mind. With the help of prasthanatrayas, that is knowledge can be attained. And from past 3 years, Madhusudanji has been teaching us and explaining us word by word meaning of the Shastras and with contextual relevance. Shri Guru Bhyo Namah. And when Shraddha is very necessary. Hare Krishna.
Suresh, you need to unmute.
Thanks, Madhu. That started. Forgotten. Thank you. Manojavam Marutatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Vatatmajam Vanarayuta Mukyam Sriramadutam Shitasa Namami. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Before I do get started, I would thank the speakers till now to have crisply condensed the essence of Katha Upanishad in the last 45-50 minutes. Over the last year or so, our guru teacher Madhusudan has been pouring knowledge into us despite our limited understanding. And what I will try to do in the next few minutes is to try and share some of the thoughts that I have been able to assimilate. The construct of what I will allude to in the next few minutes is the key concept of God in Katha Upanishad. Well, when one tries to understand a very novel concept, some of the most obvious questions that occurs to one's mind is why? What's the context? What's the relevance? Is this concept even comprehensible? For us to be able to comprehend, understand, does it have a name? Where does it live? Can it be seen? If it is seen, what's the form in which it is seen? What are its characteristics? And end of the day, what is it? What's the key message that one needs to get from trying to understand this concept of God in Katha Upanishad? That's the way I would dwell upon it, and I would like to share some thoughts on this line in the next few minutes. With regards to the relevance and the context, we've just seen that here is a situation where a departed soul is seeking advice from an elevated soul, Yama, who is 12th in the ranks, about the nature of regulation of souls once they are liberated. What this tells us is that the fact that souls, even in the state of liberation, are regulated, which means there is a regulator. A departed jiva is seeking advice. So obviously, the departed jiva is not the regulator. An elevated soul, a devata, Yama, is answering questions. And he states in the last shloka of the second Valli in chapter 1 that he is just upaseshana for the Lord, for the regulator. He is just a side dish when the regulator decides to have his meal in pralaya. Therefore, devatas are not the regulator. And therefore, the context of God here is of that entity which is different from jivas and devatas, and which is indeed the supreme regulator. When we did Vedanta Sutras, in the first two sutras, we did debate and discuss about this. And just to remind ourselves, when we said Om Athato Brahma Jidnyasa Om and Om Janmadhyasetaha Om, these were the topics that we had discussed and debated. If we move to the next slide, the next question is, can one comprehend this concept of God? Well, Yama indeed says that, even Deva, yet Devai api vichikit sitam. Even the gods are confused about this matter. No one, including Mahalakshmi, who is second in the ranks, can fully comprehend God. The question, therefore, then comes is it worth for us to even try and attempt? But before that, why is this concept of God not comprehensible? That's because Yama says our knowledge and experience is limited to the manifestations of the Panchabhutas and the Panchatanmatras, as we just saw in the chariot analogy. All our sense organs are directed outwards, and God is Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, Arasam, Agandham, Avyayam. He simply cannot be experienced by our normal Panchatanmatras of taste, smell, touch, sight, and sound. He is Nityam, he is constant, he is unborn, he is endless. These are elements which we in our material world have never come across. And therefore, if we try to see God in the way we go about trying evidences from a materialistic point of view, it is not possible for us to comprehend this concept of God. But then he says, yes, it needs a different perspective. If we find the right guru, it is possible for us to comprehend this concept of God. The next question that I've tried to ask here is, does God have a name? Sri Bandanji very wonderfully describes it. Now we're talking of the concept of God. He is someone, he, she, or it is someone which did not have a beginning. Therefore, it's very unlikely that the parents of the God arranged for a small ceremony, called relatives, and said, here I name you Vishnu or Shiva or Ganapati or whatever. Therefore, the names of the God that we use are indeed the descriptions of the gunas of the God. And here we see in 1:2:15, etat om iti brahmamo etat. So here the protagonist of all the Vedas, into whom all paradoxes converge, is known as Om. A similar verse is seen in Gita chapter 8, verse 11. In 1:2:16, Yama goes on to say that he is Akshara. And Akshara here again describes God in many different ways. Akshara is the commonest splitting or understanding of the word Akshara. From to Kshara, that is all the words within Sanskrit literature, he lives within that, which indeed means that he is Sarva Shabda Vacha. Ashnute iti Aksharaha, which means he is omnipresent. Aplakshara it is iti Aksharaha, which means he is indestructible. Adhikam ksharati iti Aksharaha, one who fulfills, one who exactly knows what we want and gives us and fulfills our wishes is Akshara. Aksha plus Ra iti Aksharaha, the one who dwells in our indriyas, controls and enjoys the good deeds is Aksharaha. Akshara iti Aksharaha, the one who is defectless, the one who is the shelter for all, and one who enjoys perpetual happiness, which is sorrowless, is Akshara, is the supreme being. And 2:3:12 alludes to a third name of God, which is Sat. Asti here can be split as Sat plus E, which means the all-knowing, the independent, the omniscient. And this is wonderfully summarized in chapter 17, verse 23 of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Om Tatsaditi Nirdesho, Brahmas Trividaha Smrutaha, in 3 different words, is the Lord known, that is Om, Tat, and Sat. If we move to the next slide, the question is, where does he dwell? So we did have some references till now when Yama's wife Shamala says he refers to Vaishwanara. He dwells within Nachiketa as Vaishwanara. He dwells as Agni Narayana within Agni. In 1:1:13, the concept of the God dwelling within us, within the cave of our heart, Nihatam Guhayam, is described. And it's important to realize that not only is he within the cave of the heart of our Sthula Sharira, he is also within the cave of the heart of our Smukshma Sharira. And we've seen in chapter 15, when we did this in verse 14, when he says, Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritaha. To put this in a 3-dimensional space-time configuration, in 1:1:17, while talking about Nachiketa Agni, Yama describes God as Deshataha, being present as Agni Narayana in the Agni Kunda, Gunataha, as being present as Vayu in the Hrudaya Kunda, and Kalataha, being present as Aditya in Antariksha. 1:3:1, which was referred to a little earlier, Rutam Pibantu also brings out this interesting concept where Dvivachana used, that there are two indwellers in the Hrudaya Guha. And Badarayana has actually written a formism 1 to 11 in Vedanta Sutra to make sure that we get the right understanding as to who these two indwellers are. While referring to this, I did come across this reference to the word Deva, and I thought it was interesting. We do commonly use the word Deva, Devata, Devaru, etc. And where does this word Deva come from? And I thought I'll take this opportunity to share the same with you, in that Deva has its origin from the word Divu, which has 7 different meanings. Jyuti, self-illuminated; Vijagisha, supreme; Kanti, whose wish is his action; Stuti, who is Sarvashabdavacha; Vyavahara, who is the controller; Krida, the eightfold dispensation; Gatishu, who is Bimbarupi, omnipresent and omnipotent. If you move to the next slide, there is further description in the Hamsa Gayatri in verse 2, the second verse of the second valli of second chapter, where Bhagavanta is, where Yama describes the God to be dwelling in Hamsa Rupi, Hamsa Shuchisat, as Hamsa in Prana, as Vasu in Antariksha, as Hotaha in Hotrus. He is in the offerings of all those participating in the Yajna, all living beings, in Devatas, including Chaturmukha, in all the sentient and non-sentient existence, and its controllers, the Abhimani Devatas. So therefore, fundamentally telling us that God is omnipresent. This concept, this God is omnipresent. The next question then is, can God be seen? The first answer there again is no. If we go about, he's present in everyone. He's very close to the Jiva Swarupa. But if we want to see him and experience him like we do in our material existence, it is not possible for us to see him. But yes, Drishyate, Yama assures, yes, we can see him. And he is seen when the charioteer that was referred to in the chariot analogy earlier becomes the buddhi of the Jiva Swarupa, not the Stula buddhi that we refer to. In those that have this vision of the most subtle form, what we call as the third eye, or what's referred to as the fourth eye, well, through that, one is able to have the vision of God. And this is very clearly illustrated again in chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna wants to see the Swarupa of Bhagavanta. Krishna tells him, Natumam shakyase drashtum anenaiva swachakshusha. You cannot see me with your eyes, and therefore, divyam dadami te chakshuhu. I'll give you those eyes that will enable you to see me. Now, if we do see God, in what form is God seen? And here Yama describes that. He says, Angushta matram, in meditation, when one does have the vision of God, he is seen as large as the size of our thumb in the middle of the heart. And this form is flawless, appears brilliant like a smokeless flame. And further, in chapter 14, when we had seen it, just to ensure that this isn't an illusion, how do I know I'm really having the experience of seeing God? Krishna goes on to say, at that time, Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakashopajayate, one will experience brilliance all over within oneself. Further, Yama goes on to describe the form of God that is seen, wherein he says that first we see God within us through meditation, and it is the image like we see ourselves in the mirror. It's the Pratibimba Rupa. In Pitruloka, he is seen as a vision in the dream, and this vision is not as clear as Bhuloka. In Gandharvaloka, he is seen as a reflection in water, and in the place where Chaturmukha dwells, in the Satyaloka, He is seen amidst soothing brilliance most clearly as we see objects in front of us. So that's the form in which God is seen. Very briefly now touching on some of what are the God's characteristics. Obviously, God is difficult to be known. He is hidden. He's within everything and regulates everything that is around us. Ishopanishad verse 5, which perhaps we will be doing soon, thanks to Madhuji, says Tadejati Tannejati, wherein it moves and it moves not. It's far and it's near. And when we did chapter 13, I'd also referred to Fridtjof Capra, who is a modern physicist, who in his book, The Tao of Physics, says, while describing particles, he says particles do not exist, but they do show tendencies of existence. And similarly, in chapter 13, we had seen Bahirantascha Bhutanam, Abhivaktam cha Bhuteshu. So the paradoxes, the opposite characteristics of the God, which, do not seem to be opposite anymore, where they culminate and resolve, is that entity is the God. He is Anoraniyam, Mahatomayam. He is infinitely expansive and at the same time infinitely subtle. He moves far away, but he is lying everywhere. He does not have a sharira, but he takes the form of every single sharira of all existence, and he is not impacted by any modifications, any mutations that happens to the various forms that he is indwelling in. If we move to the next slide, Madhuji. Here, I've picked up a few more shlokas which talk about God's characteristics. It talks about God controls all our body. God is the one who enables us experiencing a state of deep sleep, dream, and wakefulness. He's present in the past and in future. He is the creator of everything, right from a blade of grass to Chaturmukha himself. He pervades all, and he alone bears witness to all his greatness. In 217, God is referred to as Aditi, a female form that consumes everything, just telling us that this form, this concept of God is Lingatita. It's in the Vedas, God is referred to as a male, as a female, and as a neutral gender also. So he's beyond our understanding of what gender is. Then in 219, it goes on to say that the sun arises from him and sets in him in Pralaya. He cannot be surpassed. And this is exactly what Arjuna says in Vishwarupa Darshana. Natvat samustab judita kutonya lokatrepya pratima pribhava. Of the three worlds, there is no one who is even comparable to you. Forget being anybody superior to you. In the last slide about characteristics of God, I've picked a few more verses here which illustrate that God controls all our bodies. He controls prana in his Vamana form. He controls all the Abhimani Devatas. And again, this is wonderfully illustrated in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 13:32, where Krishna tells Arjuna, Sharirastopina Kaunteya, don't you know Kaunteya? He is within your body. Sharirastopi. Karoti na lipyate. He does everything, but nothing impacts him. So that I did pick up a few shlokas based on my understanding, which do illustrate the characteristics of the God. And then if we move to the next slide. So what is it? What's the message from Yama that I am taking home? And I relate it to this shloka, which says, Uttishta Jagrata Prapya Varan Nibodhatha. Arise, awake, ask for varas. I am here to help you. Ask for the jnana. Don't waste this life embroiled within the covers of ignorance, because Ksharasya dhara iva nishita. This is like walking on the sharp edge of a sword, and therefore one needs to tread carefully. And this is Tasma, and Yama says, it's not just me who is saying. he's saying Kavayaf Vadanti, Kavayaf, I mean, all those who have understood the concept of God in its entirety are the ones who say this. It's not just me who is saying this. In fact, this is the verse perhaps which inspired Swami Vivekananda to say, arise, awake, stop not till your goal is reached. Know that all the succor and vigor that you need is within you. Be bold, take the whole responsibility on your own shoulders, for you are the maker of your own destiny. And therefore, what does one do? Tadviddif pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Find that right teacher. Having found the right teacher, don't give up, persist, and make sure one does not waste this sadhana sharira, this birth in this human form, in pursuit of the knowledge, for that's the ultimate goal of all. The best, the most concise, and perhaps the most comprehensive summary of the concept of God is perhaps in the first shloka of Vishnu Tattva Vinarnaya, where Acharya says, Sadagamaika Vidneyam Samati Taksharaksharam. He is known through all the can only be known through Sadagamas. He is beyond all the Kshara and Aksharas. He is Nirdosha Shesha Sadgunam. He is without any defects. He is full of all positive aspects. And to such Lord, Narayanam Sada Vande. Thank you. I do hand over to Harish Ji for the next part.
Thank you. Narayanam Suragurum Jagadekanatham Bhakta Priyam Sakala Loka Namaskrutam Cha Traigunya Varjitamajam Vidumabhyamisham Vande Bhavagnam Amarasura Siddhavanyam. Very eloquently put, Suresh Ji, and it's a perfect setup for the next section, which talks about how do we take this concept of the God, and now that we understand it, with the means that we have to reach the ultimate goal, and and what is that ultimate goal even, and what are the ways. And a lot of this is treated in the final valli of the Katha Upanishad that we will that we'll go through, and it has elements of the Bhakti Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga intermingled, and we can kind of talk about it. So the way we'll discuss this is I reread chapter that chapter and really talked about what might be the key takeaways as we think about the journey. So one reminder, and I know Suresh also mentioned this, is that why do we need to find God, to release ourselves from this cycle of birth and death and experience supreme bliss? And this is where Yama talks about Paramam Sukham. So if you fail to realize in this life, before the physical body is shed, then you will have to take on a new body. And so this is, gives a little bit of urgency in understanding it, and to connect to what Sureshji said earlier, find the gurus that can lead you to the right path. Now, a few things on the context for contemplation and anusthana for realizing God. The first one it starts with is this metaphor of the inverted Ashwatha tree. So we have seen it in Bhagavad Gita chapter 15. It's mentioned again here in Katha Upanishad that this entire universe has evolved from Brahman, and it moves in prana. And the root of this tree is in Brahman. It says Tad Brahma, and it is pure. Tad Eva Shukram, and it's immortal. Tad Eva Amritam. And all the worlds and the tattvas that we know of, and we've gone through that in detail before, in terms of how things evolve from the Lord, and there's a whole branch of Mahat Tattva and the Prakriti and the Tanmatras and all of that. So all of that, Tasmin Lokaha Shritaha Sarve, all of that is contained within this metaphorical tree. And the entire universe has evolved from Brahman and moves in prana. Jagat Sarvam Prani Ejati Nisritam. And we've also discussed how whether it is the Agni or the Surya or all the other things that make the cosmos actually reverberates and vibrates in response to this ultimate Brahman. So that is one, is about understanding this whole concept where it's all connected into Brahman. The second key concept is that the Devata Taratamya needs to be the basis of Anushtana. And we have seen this multiple times, particularly when, Shilaji talked about the chariot metaphor, that your Indriyebhya parahi arthaha. So sense objects, the senses are beyond sense objects. And then you have the mind that's superior to the senses. And then you have the intelligence or the intellect being superior to the mind, and the jiva being the ultimate. So buddhehe atmaha mahan paraha. Now this is the how you would think about the pindanda, but then when you expand that to the brahmanda, then you will see that the ultimately the Mahatattva, when you see Garuda Sesha Rudra, so that Sri Lakshmi, the Mahat Paramam Avyaktam. So Sri Lakshmi is actually superior to that, and Shivan Narayana is actually beyond Sri Lakshmi. So it's Avyaktat Purusha Paraha. So the Vishnu's abode is the final goal. So Tat Vishnoho Paramam Padam. So again, we have the concept of the Ashwata tree, and then have to bear in mind that the Devata Taratamya is what is going to give us the roadmap to get to the final abode of Vishnu. And another concept is that the Supreme is beyond logic, and this was again mentioned earlier as well. Whereas where our eyes and our ears and our senses are not going to be able to comprehend the Supreme. He is all-pervading, Vyapaka, and he's beyond logic and reasoning. So this is the term we learned called Alingaha, which is cannot be comprehended, by logic. And then Shraddha is the other key concept that comes up, and Shraddha in both our Shastras and Guru, because Brahman is realized only by those who have faith that he exists. And Shilaji, talked about Shraddhavan Labate Jnanam. So the knowledge comes when you have the Shraddha. And in Katha Upanishad, the same concept is emphasized, that Asti iti eva uplabdhavya. So it is only when you believe in the, that the Lord exists, then the knowledge is, then you get the grace to be able to get the knowledge. Now Vishnu is also referred to as the Tattva Bhava because he creates and sustains reality, both of the Akshara and the Akshara. And this Tattva Bhava is independent. Tattva Bhavena cha ubhayoho. So his greatness is known with you. So once you know the greatness, that's when you get the grace. His grace is obtained, and then you get to understand the superiority of the Lord. So Tattva Bhavaha Prasidati. So that's when you gain the grace. Now, there was a question that's posed in the final verse, one of the last verses in the fifth Valli, where it says, Katham tu tat vijaniyam. So how do you realize this? So this is all great. We get the concept, we have the context, but what is it that we need to do to be able to understand it? And that's when there are a few other concepts that are shared with us. One is the control of senses. So he cannot be seen with the two senses. He's only revealed when you make your heart pure through meditation and through self-restraint. So this state of yoga is not attained by by words, by your eyes. Although the Shravana, Manana, all of that we do is helpful in purifying us, that is not going to ultimately lead us, reveal that to us. What is really we need is Shraddha Manisha Manasa Abhikluptaha. So it is revealed. So you have to, by controlling the mind and intellect, that is when it is experienced. So how is it experienced? It is experienced through the Jnana Chakshu, your divine vision or your third eye. And then when your five senses and mind are still, you heard the word, Vikeshtati, that is called the highest state. And this state of yoga is firm control of the senses, the Sthiram Indriya Dharanam. So that is Dharanam. And that is, a lot of the practices that we do with dhyana yoga and meditation is, is based on this, of stilling the indriyas and the mind and the intellect. And then the concept of controlling of desires is also emphasized quite a bit, because Yama explains that the man who has the intelligence for his charioteer, Vijnana Sarathihi, and the mind that is that operates like a well-controlled rein, he attains his destination, the supreme place of Vishnu. So control of so basically the need for having a good charioteer, which is a strong mind that is able to control the senses. And also, because without control of the senses, you cannot contemplate on the Brahman. And without that contemplation, you cannot gain knowledge. And without knowledge, you will not attain moksha. So it all starts with control of the senses and control of the desires. So when all the desires, kama, that dwell in the mind, pridishitaha, are destroyed, pramuchyante, then he attains the Brahman here. Atra Brahma samashnate. Atra as in here. It is possible to have that in this world. And dispelling of ignorance. So we have this metaphor of the knots that strangle the heart that needs to be broken, and that transforms the mortals to immortals. So this granthas or the knots are really ajnana, ignorance. And these granthas are the root for the Shadripur, the 6 enemies, the Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya. So that knots will have to be released. And this, so once this is accomplished, that's the ultimate goal of all the teachings in the Shastras and our sadhana, that once this is attained, the person has the God's grace, and the Shastras are great, but it becomes redundant at that point. So etavat anushasanam. So this is the real anushasanam that's needed. And then finally, for attaining liberation, it is described that the Lord is no larger than the thumb, angushta matra purusha antaratma. He is enshrined in the hearts of all. Sada jananam hriday sannivishtaha. Draw him out of the physical body as the munja grass is drawn from the covering. So that's again another metaphor to indicate that within our sthula sharira is the jiva, and within the jiva is the paramatma. So he's so it is the if you think of the sthula sharira or the subtle body to also have a form, the thumb, the size of the thumb of that form is what is paramatma, and that has to be realized and extracted out, just like how you would pull out the grass. And how do you do that? The same thing. We talked about bhakti, we talked about knowledge, and we talked about dhyana yoga. So it is all of those anushthanas. And then finally, there's the point of the 101 pradhana nadis, and Kamalaji talked about the 72,000 nadis, but the 100 of those are called the primary nadis. There are 50 on the left and 50 on the right of your body, and then there's one that goes from the heart to the shiras. And if life leaves from the Sushumna Nadi, then it does not attain another body and attains moksha. That is the ultimate goal that we're all seeking towards. So that is my understanding. And again, as Sureshji and others pointed out, very nicely summarized by everybody, and grateful to Madhusudanji for giving us this knowledge. Krishnarpana namaste.
So I think thanks everyone. So I think we are moving to another interesting section, which is the quiz, which is usually everybody is waiting for the quiz that happens so that they can eagerly send in their answers through the chat box. So no audios, just send the messages through your chat box, please. And in a few seconds, I'm going to hand over the host privileges to Pawan. And Pawan, I will play out the music, and we will give 15 seconds for people to quickly remember what has been discussed so far and provide an answer, please. Yeah, so over to Pawan, and please bear with me for a minute when I hand over the host privileges to Pawan. Just a sec.
Narayana Paripurna Gunarnavaya Vishwodaya Sthitilaya Unnati Pradaya Gnana Pradaya Vibhuda Asura Saukya Dukha Satkaranaya Vitataya Namo Namaste. Sri Gurubhyo Nama Parama Gurubhyo Nama. It's indeed been a fascinating conversation and summaries today. Everyone has done an excellent job. So this section of the quiz should be very easy. as Madhusudanji mentioned, what we'll do is we'll just I'll just ask the questions, and you can put it in the chat box. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah. Yes, Pawan. Yeah, it's all looking good.
Okay, great. Okay, first question. Who is the Devata associated with Katha Upanishad? Okay, we're getting a few answers. Okay, yeah, I think
okay, so lots of answers coming through. Everybody is giving a resounding answer B, Vamana, and Pratibhaji is also saying Hayagriva. So over to you, Pawan.
Yeah,
you are going to objugate the answer here.
Yeah, Vamana is the I guess the Devata in this Katha Upanishad. But also, I guess there is this question around Hayagriva. Hayagriva Rupa Paramatma is also mentioned in this. So maybe Madhuji, if you have a clarification there.
Yeah, I completely agree with Pratibhaji. So ultimately, is Hayagriva Namaka Paramatma, who is the Guru. But here, Madhye Vamanam Asinam, as Yama says in the Katha Upanishad, so we accept Vamana, who is no different from Hayagriva Namaka Paramatma, is the Guru. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, go to the next one. Early on, Padmajaji talked about the Krishna Yajurveda has two Upanishads. One is Katha. What is the other Upanishads as part of Krishna Yajurveda? Isha, Kena, Taittiriya, Aitareya. Okay, we got some answers.
Okay, lots of answers. So everybody is saying C, Pawan.
Yep, that is correct. Full points to everyone. Right. Go to the next one. Who is Vajashravasa in Katha Upanishad?
It's a tough one, but I'll give an extra 5 seconds for people to think about this.
Is it Uttalaka, Aruni, Shvetaketu, Nachiketa?
Okay, lots of answers. Yeah, different views. So Pratibhaji A and B, then S and D. So I don't know what S is. I presume that's Shvetaketu. And then B from Manjunath, Veena, Uddalaka, Harish also Uddalaka, and Aruni he is met. So I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was interesting. So yeah, I think many of you got it right. Is Uddalaka Aruni is the Vajashravasa. So Aruni, I guess he gets the name from Aruni comes from his mother's name Aruna, and Vajashrava is Uddalaka's maternal grandfather's name. That's how the Vajashrava. Okay. Which other scriptures discuss Nachiketa? Is it Mahabharata, Rigveda, Varaha Purana, Taittiriya Brahmana?
Okay, few answers. They're all saying D. So what's the answer, Pawan?
Yeah, I think this is one of those things, Madhusudhan ji, you had talked about this in one of your lectures. It actually comes in all of them. In Anushasana Parva, Rigveda, Varaha Purana, and Taittiriya Brahmana, there are concept, discussion with Nachiketa, the concepts of it has come about in all these four of them. Okay. Go to the next one. So in this one, maybe if you want to type in the answer, that's fine. Or if you want to talk about it, I guess that's also fine in this one. So why did Yama make Nachiketa wait for 3 days? What was the significance for 3 days? Okay. So Pratibhaji says 3 boons. Anybody else? Lots of 3s, yes.
2 answers, 3 bones, lots of 3s. Anybody wants to unmute and briefly explain? That is also welcome at this stage.
Okay.
Okay, Pawan, go on.
Yeah. I think there are many very relevances to 3s. Many answers, right? To give 3 boons, relevance to 3 Vedas, 3 Purusharthas, root causes of desires, the 3 Kama, Krodha, Lobha, and then the 3 paths to know the supreme Gnana, Bhakti, Vairagya. I guess there's lots of 3s in it. Any comments on this, Madhu?
No, fine. Excellent choices. Yeah.
And 3 ways of knowing God.
Yep.
Sorry, pro and
Deval, your audio is a little broken, but I think we got some ideas around this. Yeah. Okay, yeah, Pawan, next one.
Okay. Should be a fairly easy one. Which yajna was Uddalaka performing when Nachiketa, he grew curious about? What was the name of the yajna that Uddalaka was performing?
How it's performing?
Okay. Yep. Okay, I think they all got it.
Yeah.
Vishwajit Yagna. He had to give away all his wealth. In the ancient times, cows were designated as valuable and special possessions, and hence Vajashrava, desiring a gift from the gods, decided to donate all his cows to Brahma. Okay. So this may be slightly, maybe not a straightforward question, but let's see if we can get some insights into this. So can you name a few different kinds of Agnis that you have come across in Vedic philosophy? So we talk about the material Agni, we have Agni Narayana. So what are the other kinds of Agnis that are mentioned in Vedic philosophy?
I can try orally because
Sure.
typing becomes wrong. I think we know Kalagni.
Yep.
Then we know Jnana Agni.
Okay. Yep.
And Madhu mentioned something Durga Agni.
Yep.
And Brahma Agni. And I think that's all I remember.
Yeah, you're right on, Shilaji. Yes. Yeah. See, Pratibhaji also had 2 more there. Yes.
Vaishwanar Agni, yeah. Kalagni Durga, and then Kalagni Rudra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pradhanagni, Kalagni, Prana, Chaturmukha, Kalagni, Durga, and there are about 49 Agni Devatas with this. Okay, next one. This one is an interesting one. Kamalaji talked about this. Trinachiketa, Tribiretsa Sandhi, Trikarma Krutrati, Janma Mrityu. So each one, what's on the left side, the concept of Trinachiketas, Tribiretsa Sandhis, what are those? What are the Trikarma Krits? These are essential pieces of what our journey through samsara. Like, what are those things? Can you match the one on the left to the one on the right? So which are the 3 Nachiketas? Which are the 3 Tribiretsa Sandhis? Which are the 3 Karma Krits? Just say, yeah. Okay, you got Vinaji 1, 2, 2A. Okay. 2C. Okay.
Okay, lots of answers coming through. So you want to go through that one? Yeah.
3 Nachiketas, we talked about Kunda, Pinda, and Kala. Tribiretsa Sandhis are those Vedas like Padya, Gatya, and Gana, the ways you understand the Vedas. And Trikarmas are Gnana, Dana, and Tapa that we heard just now. So
I think all of them got it right. So
yeah,
that's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. So this one, so we heard about God's grace is absolutely essential for release from bondage, right? There are these karmic imprints on our subtle body based on the kriyas or karmas that we have done. And those karmas come to us as sanchita karmas. These are the total karmas we accumulated in the past lives. And then the prarabdha karmas, the few of these sanchita karmas that has come to fruition in this life, because of a destiny or fate. So nobody is free from these karmas. So, what we heard today, like, when does one attain moksha? So what happens to these karmas?
We'll give 5 seconds before anybody wants to come on mic and explain this. Yeah. Okay, there's one in the chat. Prarabdha are executed, Sanchita or dissolved. Veena Kankanwadi ji is saying that. Perhaps maybe Veena ji wants to come on a video and explain God's grace, and he burns it with his Achintya Adbhuta Shakti. Pratibha ji, yeah. Okay, Veena ji, yeah.
It was Suresh Madhu.
Yeah, go for it.
No, in the sense, slightly you attain moksha after all karmas are dissolved. And once one attains aproksha jnana, the sanchita karmas are taken care of, but one still have to, the prarabdha has to be taken to its logical conclusion. And that's when the gate to Satyaloka perhaps opens.
Yep. Yeah, that's this whole concept of aproksha jnana. One sanchita karma goes away, and then the prarabdha karma is over. We have the grace of God, and we obtain the aproksha jnana. there is this other concept here, right? There are two types of this paroksha gnana and aparoksha gnana. Paroksha is what we attained knowledge that through scriptures we get through gnana, bhakti, vairagya. We have to do our dhyana and meditation of the Supreme and get close to the Supreme to reach that aparoksha gnana stage. Any comments, Madhuji?
Yeah, sure. And then, of course, once you have had aparoksha jnana, and as Suresh ji said, the process is your prarabdha is needs to be exhausted. And once the prarabdha is exhausted, then what happens? Then you go to Satyaloka and hang in there for some time until our Chaturmukha finishes his 50. And he's 50 years in one day, and he needs to finish lots more, 49 years and 359 days and 359 nights. So we had to hang out there, do our Veda Parayana, Brahma Sutra, listen to Acharya's Brahma Sutra, Bhashya there, etc. And then eventually we will go into Brahman's womb. And then as Yama himself has said, when the next creation happens, then the ones that are like us who needs to come into Nitya Samsara will come to material world. And ones like Suresh who have exhausted everything, then they will cross over the Viraja and then they go to the Moksha Sthiti. So I just wanted to complete the journey there.
All right. The last one. So which nadi in the body? So our ultimate goal is that we need to attain moksha, and so which nadi in the body does the jiva exit when one attains aparoksha gnana and no more rebirths? So we talked about the 101 nadis in the body. So which one is it? Heart, head, stomach, or mouth? Okay. Yep. I think yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. 3 answers. Everyone has said head. Brilliant.
Shumna Nadi. Sahasrara top there. Yep. All right, Madhuji. Krishna Arpanamastu. Over to you.
Yeah. So do you want to come out? Excellent. So what can I say? It was a very delightful, wholly enlightening 1.5 hours or so. I think, I don't know how the time, just ran, but I'm grateful that folks from India are still able to stay awake and join the quiz. So I was going to say a huge thank you for all of the team, the Hindu Knowledge Academy team that has actually participated for today's session. I think it's a grand conclusion to our understanding of Katha Upanishad and how we can actually put Katha Upanishad into practice in our daily lives. So this is not going to happen overnight. So we just need to be conscious, and we just need to look for events and incidents in our lives where we can put Katha Upanishad's teaching into practice. Okay, so on that note, I was going to thank everyone again. And from next week, we are going to start in that spirit. We are going to start the Ishavasya Upanishad of Shukla Yajurveda. So please do join us for that session, which probably will go on for about 3 to 4 months. Okay, Krishna Pranamastu, and we'll close today's session. So well done, everyone, and thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.